Hello and welcome to this Chess Club game review. I had a request to review some older Chess Club games. So this one's from 2022. The title's kind of funny, Mike's Meat Grinder, and we'll see why it's called that. So I felt that it wasn't fair that I just show games where I win. So I throw in some games that I lost as well, and this is one of them. So let's see what I did wrong here. Now, it was a game in 20, and I started running out of time. So, that of course that contributes to the bad moves, but then again, I made those bad moves all on my own, so no excuses. Let's see what we can learn from this. And you can learn the most from the games that you lose and from your blunders. All right. So I had the white pieces, and I begin with d4 here. Now, Mike is a good attacking player, so you don't want to let him get an attack going, especially against your king, and you'll find out why here. So I decided to play d4. Instead of e4, this is a little more strategic and solid than if you play e4. The game could end up being more tactical, and Mike is probably a better tactical player. So he starts with f5, the Dutch defense here. And so I just, develop my knight, as does Mike. And I play e3 to fortify the center. And now he has g6, which will allow him to fianchetto his bishop and have that bishop lined up through the center down towards my queen side. So I grab some central territory here. I play c4, helping control this d5 square, and then I can jump my knight in behind the pawn. So Mike finds the best move, d6 here. So now there could be a threat of pushing his c pawn or his e pawn at some point. So I just continue development. Although the computer preferred bishop to e2 instead. But I plan to fianchetto my bishop on the king side. So after Mike does that with his bishop, I decide to set mine up and do that as well. But this is an inaccuracy, apparently. It looks like I should have just started playing on the queen side. And one indicator of whether you should play on the queen side or the king side is to look at your central pawns and what direction they're pointing in. So my central pawns are pointing towards the queen side. So when that occurs, you usually want to push the other pawns beside them on that side of the board and funnel your pieces in behind them. So, maybe I should have gone for some type of play on the queen side. So we have castling by Mike. I get ready to castle as well, and at this point black has a slight edge. So he presses forward here with c6, and what does this do? Well, it limits the scope of my knight, it limits the scope of my bishop here, and the game continues with castling. And now we have queen to e8. Now this is a possible strategy in the Dutch defense and other openings as well, where you get ready to move the queen over, and then it could do multiple things here, but not only does it help fight maybe for the e file if you want to push this e pawn, but perhaps after these pawns start moving up the board, the queen could funnel over here to the h-file and attack my king, which does end up happening in the game. So let's see how that occurs. I bring the queen up, just trying to continue development here, but this is an inaccuracy according to the computer. Maybe b3 would have been better, but I figure I'm probably going to play this pawn up to b3, fianchetto, and then have my queen guard my bishop and maybe try and trade our bishops out to leave my opponent with some dark squared weaknesses around his king. So he fights in the center, e5, the best move. Now there's a threat of pushing forward and chasing my knight. I decide to open up the position Apparently I should have ignored this and once again just played b4. Instead, I capture an inaccuracy, swinging the advantage slightly in black's favor here. So I have to recapture. Here, e4. I should have pushed to e4 to prevent him from pushing to e4 and gaining space and creating an outpost on d3 and attacking my knight. So it looks like e4 would have been better. If he takes with his pawn, well, then he'll be left with an isolated pawn on e5. So I overlooked that. I finally play b3, getting ready to develop my other bishop. He attacks the knight. I launch the knight forward. And so now he plays this inaccuracy. Well, this is a mistake, actually. It looks like a6 is a mistake. Queen to e7 was preferred by the computer. Interesting. So we have a mistake move. Maybe this was kind of a wasted, just wasted time here. What was happening here? Well, probably this was played to guard the b5 square. That way he can push his pawn and it keeps my knights out of that b5 square. So now we have the bishop fianchettoing, and that's not the best move. It looks like I should have just played up to a3, targeting his rook, perhaps. Then what? The rook would just move forward. It looks like it would have to do that. All right, so the game continues with the attack on my knight. So an inaccuracy, according to the computer, would have been better just to develop the other knight. So this move forces me to do something with my knight, and I have to retreat, the best move. But even at this point, white has a slight edge, the equivalent of about half a pawn. So his knight is developed. I go ahead and play this a3 move to keep his knight from coming forward and attacking my queen. But, apparently this a3 move was a mistake. It would have been better to just grab the center with my rook that's not doing much here over in the corner. So now the knight launches forward with the option of jumping into this outpost, maybe even jumping into f3 with a check. So the game continues with my knight, moving up to f4. I'm trying to position my knights as well up here on d5. I have both knights pointed to that outpost. So the game continues with g5, an attack on the knight. And now this is where the momentum starts building up on the king side towards my king. And I think the clock was ticking down and I start to panic, it looks like. And we'll see as I get put in Mike's meat grinder. So I jump my knight forward, the best move. Black does have a slight edge, a quarter pawn almost. So this was an interesting move, but an inaccuracy. It looks like the best thing to do here would have been just to capture. So if that happens and he recaptures, I would think that he'd want to run his queen down and then try and go for a mate here. But it looks like I would probably have time to get my queen. I would have to move my rook. Maybe get my queen over there. Let's take a look at this. So, in the game, I played this move, getting out of check, which was a mistake. So, what should I have done? Oh, and I guess I could have played that as well. Okay, if I take like this, he takes back, and then I guess I could move my king over and then bring my rook over here to guard this square, if he tried to bring his queen down for a mate. All right, in the game we had king to h1 and a blunder here. Mike starts sacrificing. Now, something to remember, especially if you're playing blitz games, if your opponent's time is running down and you still have more time and you're not in too much of a hurry, you can probably cause them issues if you break open their king side or the area around their king and start attacking, because then they got to deal with that and try and calculate, and they're in trouble. So even though this isn't the best move, it does get me in trouble because my clock was ticking down. So what should have been played here? It looks like queen to h5 would have been the move. So queen to h5 would have been best. And then here, what? Oh, wow. I mean, I guess I'd have to play h3, but this looks pretty dangerous. So that's probably why Mike felt that he could sacrifice this knight, because he has another knight that might be able to jump down here, his queen. So it's looking really dangerous. So if we go back to king to h1, he sacrifices. First, I try to trade off some attacking material. I get rid of his knight with check. So after the rook recaptures, I capture. And now we have queen check. I retreat. And the attack is underway here. But apparently it wasn't a sound attack, but it did work under the time pressure that I had. So, I mean, that's all that matters. If your opponent crumbles under the attack because they can't put up a good enough defense, well, then your attack ended up working. You got luck, you get lucky. Okay, so what is happening here? The threat is queen to h2, checkmate. So it looks like white is ahead here, and if I would play rook at f to d1, apparently that would be almost winning. But under time pressure, I pick a terrible move, a losing move, in fact. So after check, we have the king moving to f2, and now looks like e takes f3 would be a great move here, because my bishop is pinned and can't do anything. So the attack continues, but this is a blunder. Now, I even have another chance where if I would play knight takes e4 to help guard this square, it looks like I'd be okay. And there'd be a attack on that bishop as well. So, under time pressure and falling into Mike's meat grinder, I do not find the correct move. And I just try to attack the queen, but the queen can just move here with a check. So I probably just overlook that as well in time trouble. And then after this move, I think I just resigned here, because now what? You could have this attack on the bishop, and it's just looking pretty bad. Anyway, that is how things, that's how things played out, and I ended up losing. So congratulations to Mike. He got a good little attack going there, and I was not able to defend accurately. And also, if we look at the game review here, it looks like, let's see, Mike played at a 79.4% accuracy. I played at 73.4%. The game was somewhat even until he got an advantage here, but gave it back. And then I just crumbled at the end. So, good moves and bad moves. We both had one great move. Mike had 10 of the best moves, and I only found 8 of the best moves. Now, inaccuracies, I had 5 and Mike only had 3. I had 3 mistakes and Mike only had 1. and then I had one blunder and Mike had two. He played at a 2000 level, and I looked like I played at a 1750 level. At opening accuracy, I played 95.1 and Mike played 96.6, but the middle game I just messed up there, 60.4 versus his 70.8. All right. Well, interesting little game there. So just remember, it's hard to do under time pressure, but look for the best defense if you can find it. Here I had opportunities to defend, but crumbled under the clock as I fell into Mike's meat grinder. All right, well, I hope this video was entertaining for you and you learned a little bit. Feel free to leave comments, with requests or anything that's on your mind. I enjoy hearing from viewers, and I try to respond to all viewers. Sometimes I can't do it immediately, but I try to get back. And also, once in a while, the comments don't quite, show up for some reason, and I end up having to go back through old comments and I find them later. So if I fail to respond to your comment, send another comment. Eventually, I will try to respond back. And like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.